the CDC rushing to contain a deadly E. coli outbreak linked to McDonald's Quarter Pounder hamburgers. Here's what we know right now. They are tracking 49 cases in 10 states, mostly in Colorado and Nebraska. The outbreaks led to 10 people being hospitalized. One person has died. Everybody that the CDC interviewed reported dining at McDonald's before they became sick, most mentioning eating the Quarter Pounder meal from that fast food chain. Investigators are looking at the fresh onions and the beef patties as the potential problem ingredients. The CDC says McDonald's proactively removed those ingredients while the investigation is ongoing, and that you might not be able to get Quarter Pounders in some states for a while. NBC medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is following this for us. Natalie, it's breaking at the last minute here, but millions of people eat at McDonald's every day, including, I'm sure, a lot of our viewers. How concerned might we be at this point about making a trip to the Golden Arches? And maybe is this contained to those states, Nebraska and Colorado?
Yeah, so far, Tom, we know that there have been 49 people who were infected across 10 states, and as you mentioned, the vast majority in Colorado and in Nebraska, but I'm guessing that the surrounding states in that part of the country are also the ones that are affected. Look, Tom, anytime we have an outbreak of E. coli, we take this very, very seriously. The particular strain of E. coli that was isolated in these hamburgers is the one that can cause pretty severe illness. As you mentioned, one person has died, 10 people have been hospitalized, and one child has also been hospitalized with a rarer complication, something called hemolytic uremic syndrome. It doesn't sound good and it isn't good. It can involve kidneys, etc. So again, if you are someone who regularly consumes McDonald's, and especially Quarter Pounders, I would stay on alert to see if any cases have been identified in your area. McDonald's has proactively removed the onions and Quarter Pounders from many of the menus.
Welcome everyone to the Hurting Humanity channel. The CDC, the people that we know we can trust, have reported that McDonald's is having an E. coli outbreak, and it's linked to their Quarter Pounders and onions. And of course, the first thing I thought of when I heard about an outbreak at McDonald's was, well, I thought that maybe there was an outbreak of guru disease. You know, guru disease, which is caused via cannibalism, because as I'll get into in the video, everybody knows what's in McDonald's meat. But this, of course, is getting a lot of news about the McDonald's E. coli outbreak, not because people are fearful of what they're actually consuming, because we know that people are never fearful anymore of what they're actually consuming, because they supposedly trust in processed foods and they trust in what they buy from restaurants, and they don't even realize why they're so sick and how people continue to get cancer at alarming rates in the United States of America. But of course, the story isn't really about the E. coli, because Donald Trump MAGA supporters are very unhinged by the story, because they're claiming that the story is a psyop because Donald Trump worked at the drive-thru at Pennsylvania over this past weekend. And if you didn't see the clips of Donald Trump working at the McDonald's, well, here it is. First day at McDonald's, I'm looking for a job. What's your favorite thing around McDonald's? I like it all. I like everything. But I do like the french fries while we working. What do you feel is important to come here? I love it. So, hello everybody. Just hold on, Trump. Hold on. I'm gonna let you do that. I like the show. So that's the video making the rounds, which is being used to gaslight conservatives and Democrats into who worked at McDonald's. That's apparently something that people care about, because the supposed stories like Kamala Harris claimed to have worked at McDonald's to relate to the American people, and Donald Trump is saying that she didn't. I mean, who really gives a crap? But this is how psychological operations work. These people are so emotionally, psychologically invested in this stuff that they can be played so easily that a story like this could come out where, of course, the response is going to be, well, the CDC is making this up because Donald Trump was just at McDonald's. So this also kind of ties into that theory or that notion I've been talking about, where these brands are aligning themselves with conservatives only and other brands are aligning themselves with Democrats only. Obviously, any brand that is not going forward and putting out Pride stuff for Pride Month is looked at as a conservative brand. You know, Chick-fil-A is linked with conservatives. This is part of what they're doing with the national divide. And I believe fully that when this separation comes, that certain brands are going to go with conservative states and certain brands are going to go with liberal states. We saw this obviously with all the gaslighting being done by Bud Light and other bigger corporations by siding with politicians and then people boycotting the brand. This is just continuing with this McDonald's aligning themselves with Donald Trump's story. So the thing after that people are talking about is Donald Trump appearing at McDonald's and then days later the CDC reporting an E. coli outbreak. This also psychologically plants seeds in conservatives' heads that the CDC is aligned with Democrats and not Donald Trump. And this again conveniently fuels them into forgetting about all of the stuff that happened with Operation Warp Speed and Donald Trump and the CDC being aligned throughout his tenure as president. Now, they didn't expect the pushback that they got from people refusing to put the magic potion inside of their body. So after that occurred, of course, they quickly tried to take Donald Trump away from the magic potion to make it seem like he had no part of it. He didn't want anything to do with it. He obviously noticed it for the last year or so. He hasn't made any mention of it, even though during the last couple of years he had been mentioning it all the time. So this brings me to what I said earlier about guru, because everybody's paying attention to E. coli and getting worried about contaminated meat. But if the news didn't report on a story about E. coli, then people would continue to go to McDonald's as if there was nothing wrong. But there is something wrong, because the McDonald's burger and the McDonald's products are generally a massive health concern. I'm not saying it from the standpoint of making you obese. I'm saying it from the standpoint of making you terminally ill. Because if you're not aware of what guru is, well, guru is a very rare disease that I've talked about that is found from people who practice cannibalism. If you haven't heard, there's lots of stories that have circulated over the years about what's actually in McDonald's meat. Now, if you look up these stories, you'll immediately have a hand to your face stopping you from going any further, because of course, as the Google machine works, it's the entire propaganda machine is filled with stories about how the FBI did not find human remains at McDonald's meat supplier. In fact, they try to link a news story about a biotech lab, International Biological Inc., to McDonald's, which there is probably some truth to, but they try to link this story about a raid that went down in Detroit where a factory was found to be selling human meat. So the news story that they link up with the article has absolutely nothing to do or mention of McDonald's in it, but what they really should be doing, people should be figuring out, that a lot of independent studies have shown that burgers contain rat and human DNA, which tells us again that if we're not making the meat ourselves or getting it from a local farmer, that it cannot be trusted. Our bodies are getting it from a local farmer, that it cannot be trusted. Our bodies are our temple, and we continue to trust, even though we all question the government and we question what they're doing. Conservatives question obviously what's going on with the government. They still will go and feed themselves processed food or food that's coming from the same people, because their hands are all in it. The same people who are responsible for controlling the media. They control the food supply and the water supply. People go, well, what are we supposed to do? Well, this is why we need people to become independent from the system and become actual farmers again, and actually become self-efficient and remove themselves from being dependent on things like food and water from the government. So there's independent studies that found
Happy hour. All day, every day. Try our famous chicken lettuce wraps.
From the government. So there's independent studies that found rat and human DNA inside of burgers that are circulating around America. Now, they don't directly, specifically link it to McDonald's, but there's lots of things linked to McDonald's that tell us that human fetal cells in the food. But the story that was out there that was linking rat and human meat to 6% of meat burgers were identified as problematic with substitution and pathogenic contamination. One sample tested positive for human DNA, 3 samples tested positive for rat DNA, 46% of samples contain more calories than reported on the labels, and of course, 49% of samples contain more carbohydrates than reported. And of course, most people out there don't know, but the more carbohydrates they stuff in your food, the fatter you get. That's really one of the ways that people get fatter. If you actually eat lean meat and you eat more of a meat-based diet, you won't be as heavy. It's the carbohydrates that really plump you up, and they stick it in everything. So the independent study, of course, is kind of a quietly buried thing that's out there where you can read about human and rat DNA that are found in the burgers, but the biotech companies and their correlation or their connection directly to fast food chains is all that people should need to know, because these biotech companies have their hand in McDonald's and Wendy's, and the FDA is not a government three-letter word organization that we should trust, right? FDA, CDC, CIA, FBI, DOJ. We trust any of these people? No, we should not trust any of these people. But of course, if we buy it at a store, we're supposed to automatically think that it's safe and good for all of us. We are literally lab rats ourselves for these people. And Synomics is one of the companies that uses human fetal cells and puts it in the flavoring of a lot of these foods, like Fritos, like Pepsi Cola, like Mountain Dew, or Gatorade. And these are all items that we can find at our local grocery store, or every single convenience store, pretty much in every single cereal. And they can get away with this because there's no laws in America that ban cannibalism. There are no laws that ban cannibalism. People out there don't know that. Literally in 49 of the 50 states, they are allowed to put human fetal cells in our food, and that's why we shouldn't buy processed food. Now, you might say that sounds crazy. How in the world are there no laws against cannibalism? Well, there's laws against murdering somebody and how you obtain the actual meat for consumption, but they're actually loosely made laws that allow for educational purposes the acquisition of human meat, like, let's say, fetuses or fetal cells. Thus, they can take fetuses and say it's for educational purposes in a biotech lab, and then put it in the food, and they can wash their hands clean, and you can't sue them for it. You can't do anything about it because there's no laws against cannibalism. There's only laws against how cannibalism can actually occur. So if you can get around the whole murdering somebody for human consumption part, and you can say maybe buy a bunch of fetuses from a funeral parlor or from, Planned Parenthood, then you can get access to it for educational purposes in a biotech lab, which is connected directly to McDonald's or Wendy's or any of these fast food chains. And then even if you find human meat in your food, you can't necessarily do anything about it. Kind of like all those people that signed up willingly to take poison into their bodies, and then when they signed up or went to get poison injected in them, well, what ended up happening? Well, a lot of them got sick, and then they said to themselves, well, I would like to do something about this. I didn't expect to get sick when I did this. And so, wait a minute, they can't be legally held liable for you poisoning yourself, right?
Yep.
You put it in your body, and it's the same thing here. They're constantly protected. That's why awareness is very important. That's why they try to silence truth so much, because they don't want you to critically think. They don't want you to realize that the people controlling these corporations and your government are bigger psychopaths than any serial killer you've ever been told about. So, in addition to the burgers and the meat at McDonald's, while we're talking about the E. coli breakout, we should also make mention of the fact that the French fries that we eat from McDonald's are all grown by our friend Bill Gates. That's right, our friend Bill Gates, who constantly just has his hand in everything, including owning how much farmland does Bill Gates own? Well, he owns hundreds of thousands of acres in the United States of America, and he has a 15,000-acre plot in Washington State that he grows the potatoes for that McDonald's makes their French fries. You might say, well, what does that even matter? They're just growing potatoes there. Well, did you know about the ingredient called acrolein? That's right, acrolein, which has been founded after being tested by independent doctors and independent researchers, because of course the FDA isn't going to do that for you. That's not what their job is. That's how they get weed killer in your cereals on the shelves at grocery stores. You think they're actually trying to prevent these things from getting in the box? If you look at the side of a box of food at the grocery store like Cheerios, can you pronounce half the stuff in there? No, you cannot. So you probably shouldn't consume it either, right? So acrolein is a contaminant that is very toxic that has been found in McDonald's French fries. It's also found in smoke that comes out of cigarettes. 100 cigarettes is the equivalent of one McDonald's French fry order. That's right, 100 cigarettes. The amount of acrolein that's inside of 100 cigarettes can also be found in one large order of McDonald's French fries. But we're supposed to believe that that's perfectly healthy. And of course, acrolein also has connections to your DNA pathways and manipulating your metabolism. So these are just a few connections between McDonald's and things that wouldn't be necessarily healthy for your body. So when they come out and they talk about E. coli outbreak, everybody automatically just says, well, it's not real because there's a psyop here because Donald Trump was just serving food at McDonald's. So the CDC, even though they were best friends with Donald Trump for years and helped him in Operation Warp Speed, well, the CDC made this whole thing up to discredit McDonald's to make it look like Trump is aligned with McDonald's, and now the CDC is going after McDonald's. They're going after McDonald's. All these corporations are working together. Do you not see how they're siding with Democrats with these brands and Republicans with those brands? That's deliberately being done. Donald Trump's aligned with McDonald's. Okay, so now the CDC has to shame McDonald's. When the fact of the matter is now conservatives are just going to continue to go to McDonald's and say, hey, I support McDonald's because Donald Trump likes McDonald's, and he worked at McDonald's, and now I see the Democrats shaming McDonald's, so now I want to go support McDonald's because that's how deep their psychosis runs. Instead of saying, hey, you know what is in this food? What is in here, right? Do they know how corrupt the FDA is? I know that the conservatives are against the CDC now, even though they were helping Donald Trump in Operation Warp Speed. Are they aware of the FDA and what the FDA is involved in? And how the FDA allows all this stuff to be put in our food and never checks it. And never, obviously, the only time the FDA checks the food is to make sure there's nothing beneficial for you in it, and to make sure that there are toxic chemicals in it for you to eat. That's the only time they check it. They want to make sure that the chemicals are in there, and they want to make sure that there's no nutrients in there. So there's a check on each side of the aisle. That's the only thing that the FDA actually checks. So it's insane how deep the psyop rolls, right? We have an E. coli story, we have the Donald Trump story, and all conservatives are angry about the fact that they're saying it's a made-up story about E. coli, so they're going to continue to support McDonald's. But they don't seem to care that McDonald's is a direct connection to biotech companies, that McDonald's has a direct connection to Bill Gates himself, who makes the French fries, who's responsible for the supposed potatoes in the French fries. They're eating all the actual potatoes that are used in the fries. These people have no idea about Synomics, they have no idea about the fetal cells that are put in the food. They only care about the left and the right. They only care about their team, right? And that's how deep the psychosis runs, ladies and gentlemen.
The clown
deep.
house.
I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you guys always and your families.
Mm-hmm.